Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, we found as we were spending more time in the national space, going to conferences, we recognized that events weren't really a marketing discipline that was getting a lot of conversation, but yet, as you talked about with that smart asset statistic, and in our experience, they're really strong marketing tools, but nobody was really talking about them. And because Angela and I come from a very in-depth event planning, marketing, strategy point of view, we're like, wait a second, somebody needs to be talking about this. And we really think we're those people who should be talking about it.
I know both of you, and I agree. You are those people that should be talking about it.
Thank you.
And of course, we're joined by our friend Nikki Clark as well. Nikki, we've got similar foundation with the certain marketing firm in our background. I have a lot of respect for them, though I'm not going to mention them. But I've seen you, like, I don't know, we've known each other a couple of years. I have seen you flourish in the last year. Where you kind of fit into this conversation as follow-up from those events, but I know you've got so much knowledge on event hosting, promotion, all the other stuff that this is going to be a fun conversation. Talk a little bit about Nikki Clark and Nikki Clark Marketing. I have the greatest amount of respect for you. I love what you do. Yeah, tell us more about it.
Well, first, thank you very much. I, was a big, huge fan geek of you for a long time, and I always rep my Charlie.
I love it. We need more stickers.
Yes. So, my name is Nikki Clark. I'm Nikki Clark Marketing, and I do pretty much anything and everything marketing. But when I get on a call with a prospect, I immediately out of the gate tell them the 3 things I don't do, and one of them is event planning. So it's kind of funny that I'm on here. It's just, I did it for 5 years, and that was enough. And so now I gladly hand that off to Angela and Elise, because that's what they like to do, and they're really good at it. But yeah, I did event planning for 5 years, and it's hard. It's really hard. Angela and Elise make it look really easy. But there's so much that it takes to pull off a good event consecutively and consistently. It's very difficult and challenging. There would be days when I would come home, and at the time I was, in an office, and I was wearing high heels, and you're running around, and I come home and it's like midnight, my feet are swollen, I'm carrying the leftover flower bouquets and the leftover wine, and I just want to sleep and lay down, and it's just exhausting. But as far as and we'll talk about it, but I do have a passion for the follow-up. That's where I really like to be persistent with certain individuals and whatnot.
And my name's Charlie Van Derven, for people who are here that I don't know already. Social advisors, we help advisors with a lot of things social media. One of those things is LinkedIn events. And so really more digital events, but in the coaching that I do, everybody I coach focuses on small, intimate events. And so I don't know what Angela and Elise know either on the larger events, but I can speak to more of that, getting the right people in a small event and the follow-up there. So listen, I think it's a great panel. You guys, thank you again for joining me today. And we got a wealth of knowledge to bring. So before we dive in, I'm going to stop. Well, I didn't mean to stop share, so sorry about that. We'll get back to that in a second. I meant to go to the next slide. I didn't mean to stop share. So, we're going to talk about 4 things. And then after this slide, then I'm going to stop share so you can see us in full screen. But what we want to talk about, we figured really a nice discussion would be around, number 1, why events matter for advisors, right? Like let's lay it out there. The smart asset stat that I was talking about, that was kind of before the start here, was 25% of advisors in 2023. This is according to a smart asset survey, said that events were their number 1 marketing focus for the year. Why is that? Why, we all agreed that number should be higher. But why are events so important for advisors? 2, choosing the right event, so important. Number 3, and maybe the most important, is who to bring to that event. I don't think I'd say most important. Actually, I'd say most important for number 4, right? You can pull off a great event and everybody can have a really good time, but how do you turn that into business? Right? What's the follow-up component to that event that's gonna help convert attendees and people you've built some rapport with into new clients, right? So cool. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Just the housekeeping stuff, of course. Um, we'll all kind of be monitoring this, so if you got questions for us, drop it in the chat. Our Q&A is fine also, and we're going to just kind of take some turns batting some questions around. But Angela, why don't we start with you, because you're in the Brady Bunch square that I'm looking at. You're kind of top left there, right? So I don't know whose position that was back in the day. But let's talk about that. How do events, going back to that smart asset survey, there's lots of things that advisors can be doing and should be doing for marketing. How do events fit in, and why are they in some cases superior to other marketing that advisors can be doing?
Well, if we want to look at your marketing like a stream, you want to have all your different marketing tools, we'll refer to them as rocks in the stream, and events need to be one of those pieces. And none of your marketing pieces really should be standing alone. They should be working together. So if you think of a stream, all those rocks work to help the water flow down the stream and work together. The reason events are so important is they bridge the gap between the advisor or wholesaler, broker dealer, whomever you are doing the event. They bring that personal interaction, where a lot of our communications and a lot of our marketing don't have that one-on-one, face-to-face, Zoom to Zoom personal interaction. And that's so important these days. And they foster the connections, which build the relationships. Yeah. And when you build those relationships, you build the know, like, trust.
Yeah, I love it. And we're going to talk about trust transfer at some point here, I'm sure, right? That's such an important piece of it. Elise, let's talk about how events impact brands, right? So an advisor's brand is enhanced by event marketing. What does that mean? How does an event enhance an advisor's brand personally, or the firm brand?
I feel like it's a show me, not tell me sort of model. Events allow you to show. We can talk about the brand. We can talk about what the colors mean and what we're trying to convey. But when you actually get people together in a space, that's sort of that opportunity for you to show. What are we saying when we say we're a caring brand, right? Or what does that mean when we're we really believe in education? Like, we can say it, but events give the opportunity to actually show it, build that connection. And again, everyone keeps saying it's that big lead up of how we use all that in the follow-up to continue the conversation once we leave the room, as I like to say.
Yeah.
Can I interject and just add, it's also that experience, right, Elise? Like that feeling, especially women, like, how do you feel?
Well, again, you're right. It's showing, right? One of the things that we're big proponents of is what we call positive emotional memory. It's a very psychology driven, but when you do an event, hopefully, and we can talk about this because Nikki and I kind of bantered about this in social media about if there's such a thing as a ho-hum event. When you're creating a positive emotional memory, how are you going to put that in a bottle and carry it with you? And there's lots of ways to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nikki, you've done a lot of event planning in the past. I know it's something you're not doing for your advisor clients right now. In the event work that you've done in the past, how do you see events strengthening that bond between advisor and client?
Oh yeah, well, you can put on a very large event, but you can still make it feel intimate. And one of the things that we would always implement would be a dinner afterwards, that for a select group of people. And those became very coveted. So people would join the wait list to join the next dinner. So I'm so sorry, Charlie. I got sidetracked on something. What was the question?
How does it strengthening
For
the bond?
those who are here, I just had a baby and that was a total.
Fancy brain.
Yeah, we should have
Okay,
qualified.
so we don't have that excuse, at least, so we have to be on it.
Yeah,
We just have
should
old age.
qualified, Nikki. About event for building that bond between
The
advisors.
bond, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it does matter. We, went through a lot of different experiences where, we could get a lot of people that came, but if you're not interacting with those people and if you're not doing the follow-up, they're not going to come again. And so, we'll get into the follow-up later, but the bond is what gets them coming back and is what gets them bringing guests. And any way you can find to make that more intimate is going to be impactful. One of the strategies that we implemented was the dinner, and it was a very nice dinner. I never even got to go to one, and I hosted them. So
that must have been nice. That brings up an interesting point, right? Where I mentioned in the opening that a lot of the coaching, a lot of the coaching relationships we implement on an intimate event, 8 or 10 or 12 people max, half clients, half prospects if we can. Now, Angela and Elise, you guys plan much larger events than that, right? So how do you capture? I don't even think this was on our list of questions I sent you guys. So here we go off the cuff, right? But how do you, if you're doing a bigger event, how do you capture an intimate feeling so that you can take, so you can hit on some of that PEM I wrote down, but it was positive, emotional, whatever it was. Elise.
Memory.
Memory.
It's
thank you.
memory, Charlie. Memory.
In my ginkgo biloba. So how do you take a large event that is designed maybe as a client appreciation event, maybe there's 100 people there, and make that feel intimate for each individual?
I think Angela can speak to that, as she has done that really well with a lot of her advisor and our advisor clients. But the one thing I feel like we're not really talking about that I want to kind of throw in here is we're talking about intimate events. We're talking about larger events. We're talking about client appreciation. We're talking about prospecting. One of the philosophies that we have that we feel very strongly about is putting on events that your clients, if it's a client recognition, or your prospects, just by surveying, putting on events that they want, not necessarily events that you think they want. And people are like, ooh, whoa, that's kind of like mind readery. But again, our philosophy of this event, a moment that you create, and we have this concept of the return on the moment, which is like a wheel. When you're doing your follow-up, you're gathering information for the next time that you're doing the event. So for example, some clients are like, I want a really large event. Some clients are like, I really want a small, intimate event. We recommend people do a mix, that they don't just kind of go into one wheelhouse. But I think Angela, so that's just sort of a little side note to that, but it's doing what your clients want to do, not what, sorry, Charlie, not what your coach tells you to do, what you think, because let's face it, even though we may be advisors and wholesalers, we're all marketers at heart, right?
Sure.
Everybody's a marketer. It's not about you. It's about the client, the potential client. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Angela, carry on.
So we like to really advise, when we plan the events and we advise the implementers that are planning their events, put your attendee hat on and start from the very beginning, developing that experience for them, even if it's a larger event. So the process is the same, whether it's a small dinner, it's an educational event, it's a larger event. Start with the invitation. Have people on your team call the invitees. If they haven't RSVP'd, give that personal invitation, call them. Then when you get close to the event, make sure you communicate about parking and attire. You can do this by a phone call as well. And then the day of the event, again, whether it's a small event or a larger event, you have people on your team at really every juncture that the attendee is going to be crossing through. So when they enter the restaurant or the venue, somebody's there, or there's signage greeting them. It's very important that you have all of your team members have roles. So you have somebody at the check-in. You have somebody that's wandering around, milling around by the bar. And you have people, if you have a seated dinner or a seated event, you stagger your team. You have somebody at each table. And by having those interactions, you're making them feel special. You're making them feel like they're one of the only ones there. They're not walking in feeling lost, not knowing where to go, not knowing where to sit, not, a lot of these events, they just know the people they came with, their spouse. They don't really know a lot of people in the advisor community. So it's introducing people. It's really making them feel welcome, and all those little touch points to build the relationships. And what you're doing is making them feel comfortable. They're liking you, they're knowing you, they're knowing the community, and they're trusting you. And they leave with a very positive memory from that moment. And again, all the way through the event to the time they leave. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again, or if they have an appointment already on the calendar, you just make those personal interactions.
Yeah, super high touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
one thing also too, with teams, we like to have a pre-team huddle and see who's coming and make note of anything that you know about them. Did they just have a baby? Did they just have a grandchild? Did they just go on a trip? And bring those topics into conversation. And on the other side of that, when the team members are having conversations and a client or attendee mentions something, which we like to call wow moments, did they just have a baby or a grandbaby or go on a trip? You make a mental note, write it down on your phone, quickly, just so you don't forget. And those pieces that you have in the conversation, you bring those back up. And maybe there was a family moment that you didn't know about, and a gift shows up, a couple of weeks later, recognizing that event. So really put your attending hat on, and how would you like to feel when you walk into a room?
I love that. I really like the high touch approach, and I would call that maybe in a surprise and delight type gift afterwards. That's pretty cool stuff. Elise, you brought it up, so I'm going to throw this back to you. There's all kinds of varieties of events, right? Not just what your coach tells you to do. Incidentally, we try to get personal in those. So that being said, how do I know what to do as an advisor, right? I mean, my coach is telling me to do these small 10-person events. I've got, others telling me that I need to do a large client appreciation event once or twice a year. Some people tell me I need to get buy the tent at the PGA event that's coming through our town. How do I know what to do, right? I mean, how do I put that into action, make a decision there?
I'm a big goal and objective person. So I would say work it backwards. Like, what are you trying to do? Right? Are you trying to prospect? Are you trying to connect with your top clients deeper to turn them into potential referral sources? Are you simply saying, I'm really appreciative of your business, thank you? Like, that can be enough. So really understanding what the goal is. And again, it just comes to this very, in my opinion, very simple ask. So when you're doing client reviews, or if you're doing follow-ups, if you're already doing events, in your follow-ups, talk about, if we were going to do, these are 3 topics that we're thinking about, how would you rank them? I do recommend being very specific in those questions, because if you say to someone, how was lunch, right? It was fine. But how was the turkey sandwich that you had at lunch? Like, you can get a little more specific and get much better information than asking very broad questions. So using those other touch points to gain information that then you can look at through a CRM or wherever you store that information and say, aha, this is what my people or my kind of people, we get into the whole ideal client conversation. That's what they like. That's what they want. That's what I'm going to try to do.
Good segue, Elise. Thank you. Nikki, you and I have had countless conversations about niche marketing. What can we do? Like, how do we take what we know, who we serve, right, as far as a niche, and build an event around that particular, sub segment of a population?
Yeah, it's really important to know those, let me think, niches. Riches in the niches. I don't know. Okay.
I tell you
Anyhow,
what, Nikki, I say it
Riches
that
in the
way
niches. It just sounds so
because
bougie.
Cheryl Hickerson is here, and last time
I
I said
know.
niche, she was like, "You're wrong. It's niche."
I know.
So I'm just making
She goes.
making sure.
No, but it's on text, so how is she actually pronouncing it? You can't tell when she's
Exactly.
writing
That's
it.
right. Good point. Good point.
She's gonna jump on here in a second.
I know she is.
But it is important to know those specific little pockets, because you can have the large events, but then you can have the smaller ones. And so I was in Dallas, and Dallas is just known for a lot of stuff, but country clubs and golf courses. And so we would have we did have tents at the PGA Tour and the Byron Nelson, and I was in
Sure,
charge
yeah.
of those too. But if it was a women's event, we didn't do the typical everything needs to be pink and it's flowers and tea, right? We knew our women and what they liked. We had a lot who loved golf as well. So we made sure, I was a huge proponent of it. When we are inviting the men to this event, I don't care if they're married or not, the woman of the house gets her own invite as well, because you have to appeal to her too, because she's pulling the strings behind the scenes. So that's what's really going on. But this is where your CRM comes in incredibly handy. So I was in charge of the CRM too. And this is where tags can come in really handy, and knowing likes and dislikes. So I wouldn't want to invite someone to a wine tasting event. This happened before, to a wine tasting event that we were using a competitor's wine, and we invited someone who they were both competitors, right? So that was a huge, and we had to do a huge, like, whoopsie, we're so sorry, and we'll use your product in the next marketing event. So you're going to need to actually use your CRM. Like, putting notes in there isn't going to be helpful unless you're using it. And like Elise said, ask, like, what type of events would you like to attend? What would you like to see in the future? Do you have any friends you would like to bring? And you can make events out of those. But those small events are the big events, the client appreciation once a year, or the anniversary event or whatnot. Those small events, though, those are where it's at.
I agree. I completely agree. And one of the things that we do is we've got a checklist, right? So it's a white sheet, and it's got maybe a dozen different types of events that the advisor's thinking of doing in the coming year. So in a review meeting, you can actually say,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're thinking about doing some events in the year. Do any of these align with things you'd like to do?" Right. So I find that's effective.
Just asking, like,
Yeah.
just ask.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. You'll be amazed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Angela, why don't you talk a little bit about that women advisory concept? Because I think
Saw my wheels turning.
Yeah, I can read your mind. So business partners.
That's scary.
Those are good partners. Yeah.
Oh, geez. So it really goes back to what we were talking about, is asking your clients what kind of events they want to attend. And that can be done in review meetings. It can be done at the event. But one thing that we've seen have really good success is when an advisory firm has a client advisory board. And these are clients that you've hand selected, and it could even be COIs to be part of the board, where you value their opinion. They are pretty much your ideal client, and you run these questions by them. And a spin-off of that, which is what Elise was alluding to, is you can segment your advisory boards. Specifically, you can have a women's advisory board if you're looking to deepen your relationships with the women clients of your firm, or maybe it's young professionals or retirees, but you segment and have an advisory board of such. For one advisor that I've worked with for quite a while, we did just that. We hosted a brunch, and it was just a brunch for the women of the firm to get to know them and let them know we were looking to develop a women's advisory board. And we had flip charts, and we asked, what would you like to see? If we were to create events specifically for you. What would you like to do? And we had pages and pages, and they wanted to go to the movies. They wanted to garden. They wanted finance 101. They wanted to learn about new products. They wanted to develop a community. And fast forward, you take that information, what type of events they want, what time of day they want the events, when they want the events, and you create it around what they want. And it really makes them feel heard, and they come and they bring friends. So
I love it. Okay, let's talk about some innovative formats for events. I mean, I think that there's some that educational events, of course, seminars. People put on a lot of seminars, right? The wholesalers like those, I think, because it gives them an opportunity then to talk about product.
Yeah.
Are there other, outside of that seminar educational event, we talked a little bit about PGA tents and things along those lines. What kind of innovative formats have you guys experienced in working with advisor clients that have been really successful?
I would love to share this real quick. In Dallas, we had a gentleman, I never met him. He was a collector of historic motorcycles.
Cool.
So he had a museum there. He didn't want anyone to know him. It was strictly so he could show his collection, but share his passion, but he wanted to fly under the radar. So I never got to meet him, but I hosted an event there, and you would not believe, I mean, there was an Evel Knievel bike there. It was so cool. And we had hors d'oeuvres, because it's a very nice, there's not a place to have like a big dinner. And we had wine and someone to walk around and explain the motorcycles. I had more women show up than men. So it's just fun. You can think outside the box. You don't always have to do an event at a country club. So that's just my 2 cents right there.
I'm going to pitch in on that because for those of you who I haven't met, I don't actually come from the financial advisor background. I come from the sports and entertainment and even higher education event world. So if you want to talk about PGA and tournaments and all that sort of stuff, not only can I help you get that high return on the moment of those, but I can pull the curtain back because I've sold them. So I know what that's all about. But when you're talking about your motorcycle thing, so I have 2 sons, and our second son is very into cars. And when he was bar mitzvahed, we held his reception at a place called the World of Speed in Portland, Oregon, which is no longer open. But it was the same vein. It was like this guy had collected these interesting cars. So he rented like a warehouse and turned it into a museum. I had people like the photographer, parents who have other children who are being bar and bat mitzvah saying, this was the best party I've ever been to, because it was about the kid and it was about the interest. So, Cheryl puts it in here too in the text, but whether we do it for a bar mitzvah or for a client party, it's about experience. It's creating that positive emotional memory. Like, what's something unique that is going to make that experience stick out in a positive way and a way that resonates with that person who's there. Another example, I was talking to an advisor and they talked about having the box at the local AHL hockey arena. And what do I do? How do I, I'm tired of inviting the same people, or I'm tired like cycling through. So some of the tips, again, being able to pull the curtain back was like, can you get the mascot to show up, right? Who doesn't love a mascot? Who doesn't love having their picture taken with the mascot? Who doesn't love getting the mascot picture texted to them that they can then share on social media because they were at this event with their financial advisor? The other angle with that too, in that experience is, can you do a behind the scenes sort of thing? Like, again, this hockey thing, a parent-child skating session after a game.
Cool. Like,
just kind of leaning into that. But again, I go back to who's your client, right? So would people be like, no, I don't like ice skating. Okay, fine. Like, it'd still be kind of cool. You can there's a very unique smell of being on a hockey bench. Trust me.
Laura can attest
people
to
won't
that too.
you won't forget it. but how can you kind of create these experiences that resonate with that client that you want to replicate?
I love it. I
I
love
have
it.
some ideas too, lots of ideas.
Angela, yeah.
Lots of ideas. And you don't, I can hear the attendees on this webinar going, oh my gosh, I have to get a box, or I have to get, something large, or I have to, really be over the top, and you don't.
Yeah.
For example, we're doing a client appreciation dinner this week for an advisory board, and it's the small touches. So going into a restaurant is one thing, but asking the restaurant to really create that experience. So we have a private little room to greet everybody and do a toast and appetizers. And then we're moving to the chef's table, which is something that isn't readily available. And then on top of that, the owner is coming in, who is award-winning sommelier, and doing a wine pairing during that dinner experience. We've made arrangements for the chef to come out and say a few words. And then the restaurant and the owners actually bottle their own wine. So we've made arrangements for each guest to receive a bottle of their handmade wine signed. So just the
Very
little
cool.
touches. So yes, you can get a box at the hockey rink. You can bring in an entertainer, but it doesn't have to be that grandiose for every single event.
Yeah.
And Charlie, you had asked for some innovative ideas. One idea that has been successful that we've seen is a legacy planning event where you get people together and you can have a speaker, but there's some books out there that you can purchase for your attendees, and they start writing things that they want to share with their children or their beneficiaries, love letters, different types of events that really are emotional tied events, and that brings together the emotional memory, the experience, builds no like trust. You've created this experience for them.
Those are awesome, all awesome ideas. We've got one client who does whiskey and chocolate pairing
Yep.
with Norman Love, like a world-renowned chocolatier, and anyway, so very cool. Now, I'm keeping an eye on the clock, you guys. I promised you that I'd kind of move us along and keep us. I know we want to get to follow up, and we've got that fourth in our line. So there's a little bit to talk about before that, but I think we all agree that follow up is so key. So we'll get there in a moment. But first, before we do that, let's talk about how do we get the right people there, right? So, excuse me, client appreciation seems like it's a little more simple to get the right people there. But if this is a prospecting event, bring a friend only goes so far, right? How do we make sure that we fill the room with the right people that we want to meet? And then the all important trust transfer, right? When we've got a happy client that introduces us to their friend, that trust transfer is immediately shortening those sales cycles. Any tips? Nikki, we'll start with you because you haven't spoken a little bit. So we'll let you warm up your vocal cords before we get to follow up. How do we get the right people in the room?
To me, this was just always a challenge. I'll be honest. Because we would ask, do you have a friend that would be interested in this? And you wouldn't just want to randomly reach out to that friend. Like, who are you coming in here? I already have an advisor, leave me alone type of thing. And so we would just ask some of our clients, if you have someone else who would be interested in this, we have a free ticket, or we will reserve a spot for them, or let us know what their favorite thing to drink is, and we'll have that ready. We would want to make sure it wasn't intrusive at all, that we would want our client to ask that person to join and come, and not when they get there, not bombard them at the door or anything like that, because it can come off really wrong. I think for me personally, it was a very delicate line. I was the first line of defense, I guess you can say, as far as reaching out to people. And so we did it very carefully because let's be real, at the end of the day, we're wanting their business, right? So how can you do it the most genuine way? And it's tough. Charlie, we would just say, is there anyone that you think would be interested in this? Feel free to invite them. And that's how we did it.
We spend a lot of time sourcing names and really taking time to deep dive into how your best client, your advocates, we'll call it, right, a list of advocates, how are your best advocate clients connected to people through their neighborhood, through their job, through who do they socialize with, faith, what faith organizations, right? And so I think as they're advocate clients for a reason, because maybe they've made referrals or they made introductions in the past. And so just by sourcing names in time, you start to build a database of people you can say, hey, we're doing this event. You mentioned that you hang out with your friend Jim, bring Jim. You know me, it's not a sales event. I just want a chance to meet him, bring Jim, right? So being specific about who we want to be introduced to has been effective. But that takes intelligence. You got to gather intelligence ahead of time, right? So not smarts, just gathering intelligence.
That's what I was like. Oh my God.
Yeah, I saw your reaction, Elise, for sure. You guys, any tips, Elise, Angela, on how to fill that room full of the right people?
Angela, I'm going to defer to you.
Yeah, and I got a couple of ideas too.
It really goes down to boils down to what you said, Charlie, is and Nikki, you don't want to be like, okay, who do you know? I'm going to jump on him as soon as it's you want to be welcoming. I love your ideas, Nikki. And we have an extra ticket. We have some extra space if you'd like to bring a friend. And then when that friend comes, not okay, what's your name and your info and when's a good time to talk to you? And do you want to come into the office? Just be very low key. It's so nice to meet you. Glad you could join us. If you have any questions, let us know. And then also not going right in at the end going, so can we meet? Just be very cool. And then the more you think of the know, like, and the trust and put your attendee hat on, you're going to an event with a friend, you're like, am I going to get sold? What are they going to do? I feel kind of uncomfortable. Just make it very casual. Put your attendee hat on. So as far as filling the room with prospects, goes back to identifying your ideal client so that you can clone them per se. Where do they hang out? Where do they read their information? Are they on what social media channels are they on? What do they receive email and target the people you want to based on the knowledge of the client, your ideal client.
Yeah, I love
and they
that.
will come.
I would say also, if someone has said, and we've all experienced this, right? Hey, I sent my friend Susie to see you, but Susie never calls. Right? If that's an advocate client that you're basing an event around, remember Susie's name, because that's the person you might want to invite to bring them to the event, as obviously they have a need or that referral wouldn't have been happening. So anyway,
Can I add one more thing there?
Get in there,
quick?
Elise,
Again,
sure. Yeah.
Coming at it from just a different viewpoint, we talk about having goals for events. I'm probably going to get myself in a lot of trouble when I say this. I really don't believe that an event goal, the measurement of success should be, I spent X and I made Y, or I did this and therefore I got this many new clients, because it's not how people make decisions, right? It's I've made a connection. I want to make a connection with 5 new people through this event. But think about it again, like Angela was saying, it's a little bit about that stream, but this time it's like an information stream. Clients come to you when they are ready. If they've had some sort of transition, if they are facing a transition, if they've gotten an inheritance, like whatever the thing is, your job is to be the top of mind when they're ready to make a move. You cannot make them make a move.
That's it. Yep. Yeah.
That's where marketing comes in too. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. But events are marketing, right? So it's a touch point. I'm going to hand it to you, Charlie. It's a touch point to create this follow-up, which is again the rest of the stream. So it's not only just the follow-up of the event, but follow-up of the building of the relationship, so that when people are ready, you're the one they're coming to.
Yeah, I love it. That's presence, being there, right? Which I think is a good jump right into follow-up. And I think we all agree, right? Like the most important part of doing an event is following up from the event. I mean, this is where the hay is made. Probably there's a better way to say that, but Nikki, I'm going to defer, man. I'm going to let you lead this off. Talk about some of some of the really important things to do to prepare for follow-up, and then methodology for follow-up.
Yeah, so this is where I would spend at least a good 3 days after an event, and I was just dissecting all the data possible. But the follow-up, I made it a point, either myself or the advisor or the advisor's assistant would reach out within 24 to 48 hours. Like, it had to get done, period. And I would follow up with them to see if they followed up with the attendees, because I didn't want anyone to fall through the cracks. And those follow-ups could be an email. It could be a phone call. I preferred phone calls and just leave a message. And then some people just felt more comfortable with an email, and that's fine. I would keep all of that data also. And because over time you would see, oh, this person's consistently showing up now, and then they brought a friend. But it's that wrapping up of a feeling, like it's those feelings that you get after an event. I mean, just think about it yourself. If you have attended an event that you've been invited to, and then you get a follow-up, like a thank you for attending, and that's it, no selling at all. Like, do you want to get some coffee later? Nothing like that. Just thank you for attending. It was a pleasure. And that's it. That goes a long way. And we also implemented something every Friday, once a month, to write handwritten letters to people who attended events. And so each person, I would goal them to do it five, but people don't know how to write letters anymore, it seems like. But that was really important also. And there's also a goal in the follow-up. Like, what was the goal of the event, but what's the goal of your follow-up also? You need to be ready for that. And one thing I did want to mention real quick is when we would send out the invites, sometimes I would get a phone call or sometimes I would get an email, and the person letting me know that they couldn't attend. And I'd be like, no problem whatsoever. Thank you for letting me know. FYI, here's our next upcoming events. And if there's anything that you would like us to do in the future, please let us know. And I'll tell you, that was a huge success. So I would really encourage people, if someone does reach out and say that they can't attend, scheduling conflict or whatever, it's too far or not interested, just thank them for that response, because that takes time to do. And then ask what kind of events they would like in the future and what type of topics. That's where we got some of our best ones. And also topics, I'm going off a little off course here, but real quick, they don't all have to be about finance. One of our best events, and these were historically boring events, was we had someone from the Brain Institute. We had a 76% show rate. Normally we had a 35. So, but as far as the follow-ups, also with the right type of event and right people, send a survey. We did one at a women's event. I was not a fan of this women's event. I don't think every woman likes clothes. And so I thought it was a little presumptuous, but they held it at a fancy Neiman Marcus, and it was a spring clothing line, whatnot. And then we sent the follow-up, and one of our top clients was like, this was nice, but what was it about? She had no idea what it was about. She felt like she was being used because of her connections to other people, and she felt it completely missed the mark. So you can get a lot of good intel on those follow-ups also. And it is also really important for it to be personalized. I know some people might have 150 people come to this event. This is really important. So if you really do care about growing your business, personalize those follow-ups. A templated email just isn't going to work. If you really do care about these and you are passionate about it, then you'll find a way to make that happen. You can even hire someone to do that. I mean, granted, I was doing that for my company, but you can hire someone to do that, and it's not that expensive. And then also for the CRM, that's going to be your best source. I lived for my CRM because I was able to go in there, like Angela said, this person just bought a house. This person just had a baby. We would send them like a baby blanket with the name inscribed on it. Or if we knew that they liked a certain wine, we would have it delivered to their house or whatnot. So all of those CRM notes are going to be monumental. They're just going to help you for your next event.
That's so much great feedback.
Okay.
And Elise, yeah, jump in.
May I add something? When people think about follow-up, you see a timeline in your head, right? And that comes at the end, right? It's happened after the moment. But what we recommend is, instead of putting follow-up at the end, build that into your marketing plan so that you know what you're planning on doing in that follow-up, so you can capture whatever it is that you need to make that a success. What I mean by that is, I'll do a presentation and I'll reference one of my favorite books. It's called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. Well, you know what? There you go. I see Charlie writing it down. That's going to go in the follow-up. That's going to go out to people, say that, and that book that Elise was talking about in her presentation, here's a link to it where you can get it on Amazon. But you need to kind of know that. Pictures are always great to be able to put in follow-up, but you can't take them once everybody's left. Just kind of thinking about what your follow-up is going to look like, so that you're ready to take action and that you have the information or the collateral, if you will, to be able to do it.
And have that time scheduled in, because
Absolutely.
I made that one mistake. I forgot, and then I created a playbook afterwards, and I just made that one mistake, and I was like, oh, this takes a while. You plan that in, book that into your schedule. And then real quick, can I answer Patty's question?
Yeah,
About the
jump in.
CRM data and capture, and where do you hold it? Depends on the CRM, Patty,
Yeah.
of where you capture it, how you capture it, where you hold it. And also, I worked on a CRM juncture, I think it was called. It was so dated. It was awful. And so, no, it was not dynamic. And so for the kids, I would put their birth year
Here.
also,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
that was important also. We would send, if they were turning 16, we would send something to do with driving or college or whatnot. So you have to know what your CRM is capable of. Most of them, even now, aren't capable of being dynamic. So, but it's important to allot time to make sure you're managing your CRM.
Yeah, that's important. That's important. I think most advisors, I'm guessing when I say that, most, more than 50% of advisors probably use their CRM. Again, I'm throwing out some numbers that I'm guessing at, but not very well, right?
Not very well at all. I spent 3 weeks combing out ours, and that was just 3 solid weeks. And then it all went downhill again.
Yeah, if you don't keep up with it, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And think about exactly what it is. We throw around the acronym. It's a customer relationship management tool. So it's not just, I have their name, their address, their email, their cell phone. I might have their pet's name. I might have their kids' birthdays in there. I might know what their favorite wine is. I might know what country club, what season, like whatever the things are. You should be able to build all of that stuff in, and that gets to a whole different conversation about CRM management and what you should be looking for in one. But having that flexibility for a notes space and being consistent in what you put in there is going to be super helpful.
And check those notes. Like,
And even as basic as having food allergies, we do that all the time, is once somebody tells you they're vegetarian or have an allergy, you don't keep going back, or worse, you don't serve them something they can't have when they have mentioned it before. I mean, it's a huge thing. And I always get, oh my gosh, thank you so much for remembering. This is great.
Exactly.
One attendee that always shows up, and she's a vegetarian. She goes, oh my gosh, I feel so special. I have a couple of tactics on the follow-up to add to what Nikki said, is in this day and age, video, a quick bomb, thank you for coming, really goes a long ways. Yes, it takes time, but if you build that into your planning, then you'll have the time when you get back into the office. And also really over thanking and emphasizing somebody that brought a guest, whether it's a handwritten note and that guest as well. But if somebody took the time to bring somebody, it's a bit vulnerable to bring somebody, you know, hoping that they have a great experience, thanking them for bringing them in a bomb and or a handwritten note.
Yeah, you're asking people to take time out of their day to come and to put their neck out and bring someone. I don't know about you, but I really love when people cancel plans on me because then I can stay home. So like it takes a lot for some people to get out
Noted.
there, you know, and for them to, if it's a in-person event, for them to take the time out to do that, or a webinar, like for everyone took the time to watch this today, like, thank you. That's a big
Absolutely.
deal.
Yeah, that's huge. A couple of thoughts on commentary. So we keep talking about it takes time to follow up. Along those lines, Nikki, you said earlier, 150 people, you want to write a handwritten note. Maybe my thought is your event is probably better at that 75 person range if you don't have the time to follow up with 150 people, right? So I'd almost prefer quality over quantity in that regard, right? And then we were talking about CRMs. The reality is, you guys, there are more than 750 CRM technologies on the market right now. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know what source code makes it easy to build a CRM, but there's a lot of them out there. I think where people get, and the industry's got some great ones, right? The industry's got, with Wealthbox and Redtail, and there's others out there. I think a lot of people confuse like marketing automation platforms like ActiveCampaign as a CRM. It's not.
Yeah.
Right? That's not built for your client relationship. That's built for marketing automation. Now, we have a platform called High Level, which we're a reseller of. Lots of people are, that have both high automation and CRM, but it's not an industry product. It's strictly a prospecting product. So they're not all built the same. I've used Juncture before. I'm sorry you had to go through that experience.
It was brutal.
Yeah. And outside the industry, Keep's a great one. I like Keep. We really like High Level as a reseller of it. There's a reason we resell it. Salesforce is obviously top of the heap. HubSpot. Now, Salesforce with Pardot and HubSpot are great technologies, but they're also very expensive.
And they also have their flaws. I dealt with
Sure.
both of those, and if it's just not worth it, it's not worth it.
There's never going to be a perfect one, because again, coming from a different industry, what your season ticket database has, there's always going to be something, hopefully, that you do a little differently than everybody else. And is there flexibility in the back end? Maybe, maybe not. And you just have to figure that out. So it's not, you're never going to find the perfect one because it doesn't exist.
Most importantly is what you put in, garbage in, garbage out. So it's really important to.
Got to be consistent.
Interesting. Sorry, Cheryl just posted, we love less annoying CRM.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I just like their name, really.
Yeah,
That's a brilliant marketing name. I love that.
Thanks,
I would
Cheryl.
say one of the issues for a large company is this is way back, I don't even know what year, but we were implementing Microsoft Dynamics into a large firm of about 200 people. And you would teach the sales team, it was a vendor to the industry. You teach the sales team how to use a CRM, and then you go through every department, and you'd have to come back to the sales team. The people who need it the most use it the worst, right? As far as data entry is concerned. And I mean, it really is ongoing. Yeah. Greg says Wealthbox is great. Lots of email plugins. And it's built for the industry, right? So if you're keeping client data in there, that's good. Redtail's good. So you guys were kind of bumping up against it. I love this discussion. Thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
First thing I want to make sure we do before we close down is if you would enter your best contact information in the chat box so people can grab that. Maybe drive to the website. Look at Nikki, so on top of it. It's got a link.
She's been waiting to hit send.
That was right there. I will. I'm just going to put LinkedIn in there.
Are you putting ours in, Elise?
No, I was waiting for you to do that.
Oh, well, you were looking down, so I didn't want to.
I was reading Nikki's.
I will do it.
I've actually got to go to my LinkedIn to get it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I usually do that too.
That's going to take a second.
Yeah. So like we were saying at the top of the hour, we have recently rebranded. So Event Advisors, Angela's going to put it into the chat, but Our email is hello@event-advisors.net. And we are on LinkedIn, both individually and corporately.
And I'm
So-
gonna give one shout out here, and then I'm so sorry, guys, but I have a child I have to go pick.
Yeah.
That
Anyhow.
multitasking entrepreneur.
But I do want to say for everyone that's on here, I wholeheartedly believe in Angela and Elise. So if you do need help with your event planning, don't come to me. Please go to them. I will always refer to them. They know what they're doing. And they're really good at it. So with that, I'm so sorry, you guys, but I do have a child.
Listen,
Oh.
let's get some
Good to see you,
figures.
Nikki.
Good to see you,
Bye,
Nikki.
everyone.
Yeah, and for everybody who,
Our info.
spent the hour with us, how awesome is that? That you would
Thank
give up
you.
your time and-
Link in with us. We have some exciting new news coming up, so we'd love to share event tips with you. Connect with us. I was just double checking. There are no typos. I think everything's right in there. It's our email, website, and our LinkedIn.
Cool. And we'll get over the next day, hopefully not 2 days, probably usually just one day, we'll get the video processed and we'll get a recording off to everybody that registered. So this is awesome, you guys. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having
You
us,
guys-
Charlie. This is
Yeah,
Thank
oh
you.
my gosh, of course. We should do it again soon. And I promise to get back to the LinkedIn Live stuff I was doing. So if you'd come on that with me, that'd be great too.
Love to.
Always a good time hanging out with our friend Charlie.
We have to update our mustaches though.
Yeah, right. Well,
I know. Sorry, I shaved recently. My bad.
Thank you guys. I will see you
Yeah,
very
thank
soon. We'll get
you.
recording
Thank
to
you.
everybody who showed up, everybody that was here. Thanks again for taking time out of your day. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.